Okay, one last video for the day, and I gotta tell you, I'm the most nervous about this one. I haven't done a card making video yet, but I had the request quite a while ago, and as I was going along today, I thought this would be the perfect one. Okay, so I'm still using Rosie from Sugar Nellie, and the little liquid pearls, the Ranger liquid pearls that I put on her have all dried. And I thought she needed a little bit of sparkle, so I got my At You Speaka red glitter pen, and just along the hem in the darkest part of that ombre, I just kind of dotted on, and I left a little bit so I could show you here on the video, and just, dotted on, and, tighter in the darker area, and that'll help darken it up. And then, but take some loose ones and kind of come up, just random, into the lighter area, and it'll help it flow up out of that, just like that. And it's just, oh, and I also traced her little ties down on her sandals with it as well on that one, to get a little sparkle on that as well. Okay, so now I'm going to cut her out, and I'm not fussy cutting today. I'm actually going to be using my Colossal. It's what I use to cut images out in circles. I've had this for as long since I started scrapbooking back in like 2002. And unfortunately, Provo Craft is the company that made it, and they stopped making it a couple of years ago, but it's still my favorite tool for cutting out circles, just because it's so darn easy. So I just you have to have the little foam mat, and I can see through to my image where it's falling, and kind of place it where I want it to be. And then I just take, it's a little rotating blade knife that comes with it, and I just pop it into the track that I want and swing it around, and do the same here, and wherever it hits the image I lift it out, and then I'll cut around that with my scissors at the end. There's that. And now you can see how that does the circle, and then it allows me to kind of have her popping out. And you can do the same thing. I know I've seen videos using nestabilities. It's a little bit more involved process, but you can get a similar look with that. I just don't use nestabilities. So this is my old school little tool that I love and would never, ever, ever, ever get rid of. And then, okay. So I got her cut out now. And I generally tend to ink the edges on most everything on my card, and today I'm going to be using a dark brown. This is Color Box dark brown chalk ink, and it's their little cat's eye. I use these, straight to the paper. It does wear out the ink pad this way, so if you wanted to conserve your little ink pad, I would recommend using a little sponge to that, and then using it to ink your edges. For me, I kind of view these little cat's eyes as more of a disposable tool. $2, and it lasts me about 4 or 5 months, and then it kind of tears up the pad, and I just throw it away and buy a new one. So that's up to you. Okay, so I also generally like to give him a little frame when I'm cutting him out like this. So I'm going to be using this brown cardstock, And I'm just using the Colossal again, and I'm just going to find the next circle size up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the sixth one. And I'm just going to lay that on there. 2, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Okay. And because that's dark already, I'm not going to bother inking the edge on that. But I'm just going to glue those two pieces together. And I just use little Tombow permanent adhesive for most of my paper-to-paper applications. Just line her up. Okay. So now she's got a little frame. And I'm going to be working, I already cut and fold my cardstock, and it's a standard A6 size that is, 4 1/4 by, no, A6 is 4 1/2 by 6 1/4. And then I have all these little 6x6 papers that I had already cut out for a different project, and now is kind of the deciding process on which ones. I'm not going to end up using all of them, but I really like, this little heart one with her. And I like both of these prints, but the problem is with them both being the off-white background with the brown, using them together and the weight of the patterns on both of them with the small dot and the small text, they just lose themselves in each other. They, compete and kind of become pointless. So I got to choose one or the other. And I think if I'm going to go with bringing in this bigger circle, I'm going to veto the little polka dots because it just might be too much polka dot going on, and bring in the text that way. So that kind of makes that decision for me. Alright, so now I got to figure out background. I think I'm going to use this, but I don't want to lose it. So this is where then my dark red comes into play. So I think that'll be nice. So I'm just going to lay that on there. And I've been asked what size cards I generally make, and I keep them, in the standard A2, the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, the A6, which is what I'm doing today, A7, which is the 5 by 7, and then for square cards, most of the time, it's 5 by 5 or 5 1/2 by 5 1/2. And every once in a while, if I'm working with something really giant, I will do a 6 by 6, but most of the time 5 1/2 by 5 1/2 is as big as I go on the square. So now I'm just going to quickly ink the edges on this. I just like that little bit of definition and then cohesion it's going to create by doing that with all of the patterns that I'm using. So it helps me when I'm using a bunch of varying patterns, I think, to pull them all together. So I'm just going to get that on there. Now I can lay this down and just give myself a mark, and we're going to just cut it there. And I'm not, I don't have a specific plan. I just have general kind of layouts that I fall into using quite a bit. And this is kind of one of them. And I think I'm gonna just round the top 2 corners. Ink this again. And again, these are called, the line is Love Struck from Making Memories, but like I said, it's been out for a few years, so it'd probably be kind of hard to find, but any Valentine paper would work. Okay, so now on the bottom, I think I'm going to pull in the big polka dots, just because with the large scale print, it's nice to have those on the bottom. The heavier weight, just it grounds the whole design more. And I'm going to take it all the way to the bottom. There's my line. That's gonna work. Okay. I'm not worrying about inking these edges that are meeting here in the middle, because I know I'm gonna be taking strips of paper across there. So it'll hide that seam. See how we're doing, because I think she's going to fall in that area over there. Yeah, I think that's going to be pretty. Okay, so now I also want to bring in a little decorative edge border. And instead, at first I was going to take it all the way across the card, but I still may. Yeah, why not? Let's do it all the way across the card. So, I'm going to pull out this Martha Stewart. It's the beaded arc border punch. And I'm just going to kind of even spacing on either side, try to find the middle. Because I like to have the design be similar, end on a similar place on either side. That's just me. You could start anywhere you want on these. A little bit. Okay. Alright. So now, just going to trim that down. And I'm not going to worry about inking that because most of it is going to get covered, and I don't want to brown up the little beaded part. So I'm just going to run my adhesive across there. We're going to just hide that seam. I'm lining it up across. Okay. So Now I've got this little bit of paper to bring in for the little hearts. And with the red in the background, I think I'm going to have to scrap this one. Even though I love those arrows with this, I want to bring in some more of that light pink. And that, we'll do a couple rows of those. So since I was using a pre-cut 6x6 piece of paper, you can see that it wouldn't span that entire length the way it is. But because I have her coming, going to be laying there, I'm going to do a little bit of a cheat. And we're just going to fake it like it goes all the way across. So this one I am inking. Put that on. See how she's going to cover that up nicely? Nobody's ever going to know that that paper is cut there. Okay, so now I have this that was part of the paper, and I'm actually going to use it for my sentiment. Make that quick and easy. So I'm just going to cut out this little "Love is in the air." And do I want to keep it looking like the ticket? I think for the sake of the video, no, we're just going to make it quick. So I'm actually going to trim off the little ticket looking ends and even it up. Keep a little bit of that floral border around it, but I'm just going to make it a little rectangle. Okay. So we got her there. We're going to have a sentiment there. And I want to bring some ribbon in. And this is just seam binding. I had seen on Pinterest this very cool hand-dyed ribbon that was kind of cream, and I wanted to reproduce it, and I was trying to think of the best ways possible. And so this is actually just using my Copic, the R32, and running the edge of it. Let's see if I can, along the seam binding, which I have to thank my blogging friend Kiara. She does amazing crinkled ribbon, which I was not going to get into, but she sent me some of her beautiful ribbon, and I was like, oh, it's so cool. So eventually I had to I broke down and got some of the, it's just, you know, seam binding. It's not that, you know, bad. It's pretty cheap. And so now I've been playing with different ways. I've done some of the crinkled ribbon, and then I saw this and I wanted to give it a go. And so that's, and it's, I thought it was pretty successful. But I also am now thinking that I did, you know, with the pink it might be a little monochromatic more than I want it to be. So I also, because I have that little bit of green in her, pulled out my Tim Holtz Distress ink. It's the crushed olive. I took some more of the seam binding, and this is doing the same thing, just with the Distress ink. You just take some of the seam binding and you just kind of rub it against the edge of the ink pad, and it's a little bit longer process than the Copics, but you can get that same variegated look on each side of your seam binding. So if you don't have Copics, you can get a similar look with the Distress ink pads, any raised ink pad, I think, but because you've got that little edge to kind of pull it against, and it's just a cool kind of look there. So that's just something I thought I would share. And I think in the end on this card I'm going to end up using the green just to pull in a little bit of another color. And so get that on there. I'm going to place her there. I'm going to have my sentiment kind of here, so my bow is going to end up over here, and since I know where the bow is going to end up, I am going to do a quick Nellie knot just so I don't have to use any adhesive. So I'm just taking a regular hole punch, and wherever I want that bow to tie, I'm just punching a hole in the card. So now I'm just pulling the ribbon up from the center of the card, and it wraps around the inside, and around the front, back to the inside, and I'm taking the other end of the ribbon up through the hole, like so. Make sure it's all nice and straight on the inside as well. And then I want an end on either side. And once that I have that in place, it's simply tying the bow. Nice and tight, and just fussing with it until you get it the size that you want. Okay, and that's just a quick little way to get ribbon on without having to use any adhesive. I'm just going to snip off the ends there. Just like that, and it shows through, but I don't mind ribbon on the inside of the card. I think it's pretty. Okay, so now I'm just going to get some foam adhesive on the back of Rosie here. Lift her up, give it some dimension. Here I am trying to hurry and it seems like it's taking forever. Okay. So she's just going to go over here. And the reason why I'm placing her on this side of the card is to keep her eye line directed in towards the sentiment that I'm going to be adding, rather than placing her here and having the eye line of the stamp taking the viewer's eye off of the card and away from all the other elements that you add to the card. So that's just something to think about. Ink that up, slide that there. I'm going to use a little bit of foam adhesive there, and regular adhesive on that side, since it's going to be resting on top of Rosie's circle a little bit. So we got that. Straighten it up. Okay. Okay, now the finishing touches, and most of you know me, I'm a pearl and gem kind of girl, which of course I'm going to use today. So I have some champagne colored halfback pearls from Kaisercraft, and I'm just going to add a few on here. I generally start with the largest one and find where I kind of want it anchoring, so we're going to stick one there, and then it's just kind of putting them on in a pleasing manner, balancing, trying to anyway. You know, those are my largest ones, so now I'm going to start adding some of the smaller ones in. Little groupings, and I generally will keep it in an odd number. So right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 5 on there, but I want to add a little bit more. So we're gonna go 6 and 7. And I think I'm going to bump it even up higher to 9 because I want to get a few more over here. So 8, and I think we'll add another one here. And this is totally, you can put them wherever you want. Yeah, there we go. So we got little pearls going on. We got our ribbon, we got our sentiment. I think, oh, the only other thing I was thinking I wanted to get on is I am lucky enough to have a very talented sister who crochets and knits, which neither of which I do. But she's good to me, and she makes me little things, and I asked her, I saw these on Pinterest as well, and I asked her if she could make me some little crochet hearts, and she was a doll and did. So I want to get this on here, and perfect color match, and I'm going to stick that right on the bow. And then I'm also thinking to bring in some of that light pink. Let's see how it would look adding a little stick pin maybe. Too much? I don't know. Might be too much. Let's try. How much time do I have? Oh, I'm over. That's going to have to be it. Bye.